Stealing Fire. How Silicon Valley, the Navy SEALs, and Maverick scientists are revolutionizing the way we live and work. By Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel. Introduction. The never-ending story. Some revolutions begin with a gunshot, others with a party. This one kicked off one on a Friday night in downtown Athens. In 415 BC, Alcibiades, a prominent Greek general too and politician, had invited a small circle of friends to his villa for what was to become one of the more infamous bacchanals in history. Hooded in the stolen robes of a high priest, Alcibiades swept down his marble staircase, recited a forbidden incantation, and produced an ornate decanter. Carefully, he poured a single shot of a dark liquid into each guest's glass. A few more words, an exuberant cheer, and everyone drained their cups. In less than an hour, 3 the effects took hold: fears, terrors, quiverings, mortal sweats, and a lethargic stupor come and overwhelm us, the historian Plutarch later recounted. But as soon as we are out of it, we pass into delightful meadows, where the purest air is breathed, where sacred concerts and discourses are heard, where, in short, one is impressed with celestial visions. By sunup, those visions had faded, replaced by repercussions in the real world. Alcibiades' illicit party kicked off a chain of events that would prompt him to flee Athens, dodge a death sentence, betray his government, and set in motion the trial and execution of his beloved teacher, Socrates. Famously handsome, eloquent, and ambitious, Alcibiades' faults were as plentiful as his gifts. He offered sex to Socrates in exchange for the philosopher's deepest secrets. Before his wife could divorce him for womanizing, he dragged her out of court by her hair. Politically, he played both sides against the middle, and his only true allegiance was to his career. So when his rivals got wind of that scandalous evening, they ratted him out to the highest Athenian court for stealing kykein, the sacred elixir he'd shared with his guests. He was tried in absentia for a crime punishable by death, blaspheming the mysteries. And not just any mysteries. The Eleusinian mysteries, for a 2,000-year-old initiatory ritual that had an outsized impact on Western philosophy and counted some of Greece's most famous citizens among its elect. Foundational notions like Plato's world of forms and Pythagoras' music of the spheres were informed by these rites. Our mysteries had a very real meaning. 5. Plato explained, "He that has been purified and initiated shall dwell with the gods." Cicero went further. 6. Calling the rites the pinnacle of Greek achievement. Among the many excellent and indeed divine institutions which Athens has brought forth and contributed to human life, none, in my opinion, is better than the mysteries. We perceive the real principles of life, and learn not only how to live in joy, but also to die with better hope. In more contemporary terms, the Eleusinian mysteries were an elaborate 9-day ritual designed to strip away standard frames of reference, profoundly alter consciousness, and unlock a heightened level of insight. Specifically, the mysteries combined a number of state-changing techniques: fasting, singing, dancing, drumming, costumes, dramatic storytelling, physical exhaustion, and kykein to induce a cathartic experience of death, rebirth, and divine inspiration. And so powerful was this experience, and so significant were those insights, that the mysteries persisted for more than 2,000 years. A lesser ritual would have fizzled, or at least become an empty gesture devoid of its original power. Eleusis, historians tell us, endured time and turmoil for a couple of key reasons. First, initiates kept the mystery in the mystery. Disclosing any of its secrets, as Alcibiades did, was a capital offense. And second, kykein, that dark liquid at the heart of the ritual, packed one hell of a punch for anthropologists. Uncovering the ingredients of kykein has become a holy grail kind of quest. It ranks right up there with decoding soma, the ancient Indian sacrament that inspired Aldous Huxley's groupthink happy drug in Brave New World. Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann VII and Harvard-trained classicist Karl Ruck argued that the barley in kykein might have been tainted with an ergot fungus. This same fungus generates lysergic acid, a precursor to the LSD that Hofmann famously synthesized in his Sandoz pharmaceutical lab. When consumed accidentally, 8 ergot prompts delirium, prickly limbs, and the hallucinations known as Street Anthony's fire. When taken on purpose, within the context of an intensive initiatory ritual, you have all the ingredients of a highly effective ecstatic technology. So effective that Alcibiades was willing to risk his life to steal it for a party. All of which is to say, as far back as we can trace Western civilization, buried among the stories that bore schoolchildren to tears, we find tales of rebel upstarts willing to bet it all for an altered state of consciousness. And this isn't an isolated incident. It's just an early indicator of a perennial pattern, hidden inside of history, tucked among the names and dates we know so well. At the center of this dynamic sits the myth of Prometheus. 9, the original upstart rebel who stole fire from the gods and shared it with humankind. And he didn't just steal a book of matches, but also the power to seed civilization, language, art, medicine, and technology. And rage that mortals would now have the same power as the gods. Zeus chained Prometheus to a rock, letting eagles rip out his innards for eternity. This story has continued to repeat itself throughout the ages. Typically, a rebel, seeker, or trickster steals fire from the gods. It can take the form of a potent celebratory rite, a heretical new scripture, an obscure spiritual practice, or a secret, state-changing technology. Whatever the case, the rebel sneaks the flame out of the temple and shares it with the world. It works. Things get exciting. Insights pile up. Then, inevitably, the party gets out of hand. The keepers of law and order, call them the priests, spot the hedonistic blaze, track down the thief, and shut down the show. And so it goes, until the next cycle begins. Stealing fire is the story of the latest round in this cycle, and potentially the first time in history we have a chance for a different ending. It's the story of an entirely new breed of Promethean upstart. Silicon Valley executives, members of the U.S. Special Forces, Maverick scientists, to name only a few, who are using ecstatic techniques to alter consciousness and accelerate performance. And the strangest part, it's a revolution that's been hiding in plain sight. Accidental Prometheans. If a revolution is the kind of thing you can stumble upon, then we, your authors, Stephen and Jamie, stumbled upon this one a few years ago. And really, we should have seen it coming. That's because at the Flow Genome Project 10 we study the relationship between altered states and peak performance, focused primarily on the experience known as flow, defined as an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and perform our best. Flow refers to those in the zone moments where focus gets so intense that everything else disappears. Action and awareness start to merge. Our sense of self vanishes, our sense of time as well, and all aspects of performance, both mental and physical, go through the roof. Scientists have known about the relationship 11 between flow and peak performance for more than a century. But a real understanding of this relationship has been slow in coming. The main problem was conflicting motivations. The people really good at finding flow, mostly artists and athletes, were rarely interested in studying it. And the people interested in studying flow, primarily academics, were rarely good at finding it. We founded the Flow Genome Project in an attempt to solve this problem. Our goal was to take a multidisciplinary approach to mapping the neurobiology of flow, and then open source the results. But to do this, we had to establish a common language around these states. So Stephen wrote The Rise of Superman, a book about the neuroscience of peak performance and action sports. Following the book's release, we found ourselves talking flow with a wider and wider assortment of people. What began as meetings with individuals and organizations with a vested interest in high-stakes competition, professional athletes, and the military, expanded into Fortune 500 companies, financial organizations, tech firms, healthcare providers, and universities. The idea that non-ordinary states of consciousness could improve performance was spreading out of the extreme and into the mainstream. But what caught our attention were the conversations we were having after those presentations. On to many occasions to count, people would pull us aside to tell us about their clandestine experiments with ecstatic technologies. 12 We met military officers going on month-long meditation retreats, Wall Street traders zapping their brains with electrodes, trial lawyers stacking off prescription pharmaceuticals, famous tech founders visiting transformational festivals, and teams of engineers microdosing with psychedelics. In other words, everywhere we went, someone was trying to steal the kaikin. We wanted to know precisely where this trend was originating and exactly how these leaders were altering their mental states to enhance performance. So we lit out on the trail of these modern-day Prometheans over the last 4 years. This journey has led us all over the world. 13 to the Virginia Beach home of SEAL Team 6, to the Googleplex in Mountain View, to the Burning Man Festival in Nevada, to Richard Branson's Caribbean Hideaway, to luxurious daches outside Moscow, to Red Bull's headquarters in Santa Monica, to Nike's innovation team in Portland, to biohacking conferences in Pasadena, to private dinners with United Nations advisors in New York. And the stories that we heard stunned us, in their own ways. With differing languages, techniques, and applications, every one of these groups has been quietly seeking the same thing: the boost in information and inspiration that altered states provide. They are deliberately cultivating these states to solve critical challenges and outperform their competition. It isn't just grit, or better habits, or longer hours that are separating the best from the rest. To hear these trailblazers tell it, the insights they receive in those states are what make all the difference. And unlike in earlier More guarded eras, today they're openly talking about their adventures. The ecstatics are coming out of the closet. Put all these experiences together, and it's beginning to seem like a Promethean uprising. Advances in science and technology are giving us unprecedented access to and insight about the upper range of human experience. Arguably the most controversial and misunderstood territory in history, around the world. Revelers, soldiers, scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, technologists, and business leaders are leveraging these insights for a common goal. A glimpse above the clouds, first in isolation, then in increasing numbers, and now, if you know where to look, virtually everywhere you look. We are witnessing a groundswell, a growing movement to storm heaven and steal fire. It's a revolution in human possibility, and this is a book about that